Hello, Virgo. Welcome to your June 2023 astrology forecast. For those of you who are new here, my name is Jane. So I just kind of want to go through these transits in order. Okay, we have some big ones going on, although I don't like they are bigger. But I don't know that they're going to be especially disruptive, with the exception of maybe Neptune retrograde at the very end of the month. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. First thing, we have Venus coming in to Leo on the 5th, okay? Now, Venus comes in, she's going to join Mars. Here's Mars. And as she comes forward throughout the course of June, she is going to be entering what's called her pre-shadow phase. This is the period of time before her retrograde. She is going to officially retrograde in July, so we'll talk all about that next month. But we're starting to really see the themes of what that retrograde is going to bring about now in June. I often feel, it's my personal opinion and just my own personal observation, that the pre-shadow phase is often a lot more intense than the actual retrograde itself. Okay, and because this is in a zodiac sign like Leo, there will be a tendency for the dramatics. Okay, now Venus, as we know, is a planet of relationships. Plus, you also have a lot going on. We have a Saturn retrograde and a Neptune retrograde. We'll talk about that in a minute in your 7th house. Both of these are going to be retrograding this month. So with Venus in her pre-shadow plus heavy 7th house retrograde action, I wouldn't be surprised if relationships of all kinds, specifically romantic relationships, but there could be other types, whether it's you with a client, you with an employer, even you with a friend, or you with someone that you're collaborating with, whatever the case may be. I do feel that that is going to be the highlight. Okay, that those are going to be that's the area, if you will, that is going to pull your focus throughout June. With a Venus retrograde in the 12th, because the 12th is so closely associated with loss and surrender and letting things go, and also there's also, a hermit quality that comes through. There's an isolation, wanting to withdraw. It's possible that Virgo, I'm not saying you can't, but it's almost as though you might not really be able to show up in a fully emotional way. And that might be able to, that might create some distance between you and a partner, some disruption, some struggle. And the terms of your arrangement, the terms of your relationships, or the expectations within a relationship might need to be redefined. There might be something that you are unhappy with, something that you're struggling with, something that you don't want anymore, something that maybe you committed to a while ago, and now all of a sudden you're like, I don't know that this is what I want. Now, if you're in a healthy relationship, I'm not saying that there is any threat that something bad is going to happen in your relationship, okay? It just means that you may need to sit down and have a clear conversation about how you move forward. And in order to move forward, more than likely, you're going to have to let something from the past go. Something might not be able to be fully carried over. Now, the good news about having Mars in Leo as well as Venus is that I often see Leo as being, it's a life-giving sign. Okay, this is the sign where children comes through and whatnot. And I feel like even though something may be dissolving, another thing is being born. So there's a lot of positive to it. There's a big positive upswing, but it just means, that it might be a little bit harder for Virgo to let go this month, because it's just, there seems to be a little bit more pressure on it. And it's one thing if this was happening like in your career, or let's say it's in your 9th house of spirituality. That's like one thing. But when you have a lot going on with personal relationships, usually that's one of the most important things in our lives. So this is going to be a bigger month for Virgo in some way, shape, or form. And there might be, some big transformations in your unions. So Venus comes in on the 5th, but as she progresses throughout the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th week of June, that's when we're really going to start to see the themes of the Venus retrograde emerge. Mars is kind of carving a path. They don't officially connect. Like Venus doesn't officially come in contact with Mars during this transit, but she does move a little bit faster, and she will get really, really close to Mars. So when we have the Venus-Mars connection, this may also have a lot to do with how you relate to people of the opposite sex as well. So whether it's a romantic relationship or not, there might be something coming up with that, okay? And then on the 11th, we have both Mercury coming into Gemini and Pluto retrograding into Cancer. So first of all, your ruling planet is coming into one of its signs of rulership. I always think this is a good thing. Even though technically Gemini is really different from you, it is nice to have a strong ruling planet in the chart. Not to mention 10th house is really prominent. Virgo, you might be someone, which I think this is pretty common for Virgo, so I don't know that this is especially out of the norm, but you might be the one that people go to for advice. I think you'll be more likely to initiate important conversations. You'll be the one that's more likely to bridge the gap or to mediate or whatever. With other people, but also I think there's a lot going on in your own life too, not just with your other person, right? But with your career, with your money, you're thinking about growth, you're thinking about expansion, what it is you want to do. And at the beginning of June, as we can see, we have this Mercury Uranus conjunction here, and in the first couple of days of June, this will remain. And so we kind of start June with this electric jolt, right? There's a strong electric pulse that comes through. And if you are considering a new path or a new direction in your life, maybe you're thinking about a new job or moving to a new place or whatever the case is, chances are as June progresses, that idea is going to become more and more and more actualized as you figure out a way to integrate that into your life. Let's say you work for a corporation, but you want to be one of those traveling nomads or like those digital nomad people. So maybe throughout June, this is a time where you come to your boss and you say, hey, I think I want to do this, but I want to keep working for you. Is there any way that we can work out a situation where I can be working abroad and, X, Y, and Z, working out the logistics and how all of that would work, and slowly but surely make it happen. I think Virgo does have a sense of determination to make something happen right now. So Mercury comes in on the 11th and Pluto dips back into Capricorn. So remember when Pluto came into Aquarius the first time back in March, and I told you, I said, this is a good preview of what Pluto in Aquarius is going to be like. But Pluto is going to dip back into Capricorn 2 different times between 2023 and 2024. It's going to go back and forth twice. So this is the first time. Now, when we have a retrograde like this, it kind of reminds us how cyclical life can be. And when it pulls down into that 5th house, it is possible that something from the past can resurface. Something that has kept you stuck. Something that has been, kind of had its hooks in you. And maybe you thought you were free from it. With Pluto came into Aquarius. Oh, phew, thank goodness, I'm done. It's over. I'll never see it again. But Pluto comes back to kind of re-release the issue or the circumstance or the person or whatever. This may tie in to the 7th house retrograde, so there could be something relational or romantic that happens on that front as well. The thing is when this happens, it's usually a good thing for us to be able to see how far we've come. Because as we grow, and then something from the past comes back, we tend to feel distanced from it. We tend to feel really different. And we're like, wow, I can't believe I really wanted that before. I can't believe I was so attracted to that person. I can't believe that was what I was working for. I can't believe I'm in such a different place. And I think this is a time where Virgo can feel validated in their choices and feel reassured that they made the right choices, to feel confident moving forward, that listening to themselves really was the best option. Like, let's use a dating scenario, even though I know not everyone is here for romance. This is an easy example that everyone can understand. It's like, 10 years ago, maybe you fell madly in love with someone, but you never were really able to have a real relationship with them. And maybe in your heart, you always wondered what it was like or would have been like had it worked out a certain way. And maybe this person resurfaces during this time and you start to realize, you're like, wait, why was I so attracted to that person? Why did I think they were so special? Why did I put them so high up on that pedestal? You kind of have that grounding, coming back to reality about something. And that can be good because, again, like I say, it validates a lot of your choices. It validates what you've done, and it can give you so much more confidence moving forward. So don't be discouraged, I think, by things from the past coming back. Don't be discouraged by even the past patterns that you've had. If this has nothing to do with romance, it might, for most people, it probably has nothing to do with romance. Maybe it's like a certain pattern of behavior or something else. But it's good because it just shows you that, like, you really don't want to be there anymore. It shows you that you're happy with where you are, and it shows you that there's reason to be excited about these new pathways that are opening up for you, especially as, this Uranus, Mercury coming into the 10th house thing starts to come forward throughout June. Okay, so don't be discouraged by past things. It's not the universe holding you back. It's the universe showing you and kind of giving you permission, if you will, to fully release and to fully let go. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so that's on the 11th. And then on the 17th, we have Saturn retrograde. So at the same time that Pluto is re-entering Saturn-ruled Capricorn, Saturn is slowing way, way, way down. And when a big outer planet like Saturn and also Neptune, which they're both going to be really slow throughout June, when planets like this start to slow, we do feel that inertia. And like I said before, this is going to put added emphasis on the relationship department of your life. Romantic relationships, or anyone that you are bound to contractually, legally, romantically, professionally, whatever the case is, okay? When a Saturn retrogrades, a lot of times that Saturn energy goes internal, or it internalizes itself. And when we have internalized Saturn, it can be difficult to express emotions. Because when Saturn is going direct, usually our boundaries are external. We have, financial issues, or we have problems at work, or we have problems with a family member or something like that. But it's not necessarily always us, okay? So when it does go inside, sometimes it's hard to really show up. There's an internal blockage. Maybe you're not feeling it right now. Maybe you're not feeling inspired. Maybe it's hard to say what you really feel or what you're really thinking. And that can create some distance within a relationship, not to mention you've got the 12th house activation here as well. So I think, just generally speaking, Virgo may feel slightly adrift with the relationship department. But again, career-wise, life-wise, maybe these two things are in conflict. Because on one hand, you can't just always walk away from a relationship. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you genuinely love the person, but also your heart is elsewhere. Your heart is trying to take you, somewhere. So maybe you're having to figure out how to balance preserving what's, the love and the connection and the contracts and the obligations that you have, while still figuring out how to expand. Unfortunately, Virgo, you can't just run away, right? Astrologically, that's not feasible for you. Okay, that full moon, we got the moon cycle this month as well. On the 1st, we have the full moon of Sagittarius, and then we have the new moon on the 18th in Gemini. And both Gemini and Sagittarius really do want freedom to roam. Sagittarius may be in a bigger way than Gemini, but either way, both of these require movement in our lives. And sometimes there are just situations that are not conducive to our own personal desire for movement. It just it's not always compatible. So you might need to figure out how to balance that. How do you still keep the things that are important to you while also personally moving in a new direction? And is that possible? And some of you may really struggle if you have a partner that doesn't want to grow with you, or if you have people around you that don't necessarily want to get on board with what you're doing because it impacts them too much. And again, that can also create even more distance between the two of you. The good news is Mercury is in Gemini, and then later on, both the Sun and Mercury will move into Cancer. Mercury is moving quite fast right now, so there's a lot of support for expressing how you feel and what you think. And you'll be able to handle direct and honest communication. And I think other people will be able to handle direct and honest conversation as well. So the more direct and honest you can be with another person, the more likely you are to find a solution. So there's a lot of support for finding solutions for issues. So that's good. So yes, the sun comes into Cancer on the 21st, and we have the solstice, summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere, obviously winter solstice down in the south. And then Neptune retrogrades on the 30th. So with Cancer and Pisces being activated like this, yes, there is going to be a lot of emotion. And don't forget, the South Node is still down here in Scorpio. The node is going to leave Scorpio in July, so this is the last full month having the node in Scorpio. So it's almost as though the South Node is trying to get all the last little lessons of fear out of the way to help us work through a lot of that fearfulness that we've been dealing with over the past year and a half. And the emotional component here with Cancer and Pisces can be a little overwhelming. A Neptune retrograde, it's kind of like the tide starting to change. Okay, the tide is changing, and that can be an overly emotional experience. And sometimes it's hard to put words to those emotions. The good news is we will have Mercury in Cancer, which will help with that. But it is still hard because it's so focused on the feeling of everything. And even having Mars and Venus in Leo, while Leo is a sign of self-expression, here in the 12th house, it can get lost and blurry. So it is possible that once Cancer season is activated, so that last week and a half of June, it is possible that Virgo may have a really hard time articulating exactly what's going on. You're going to have a lot of self-awareness. And it's going to be, important for you to say, hey, I'm just having a hard time understanding what I'm really feeling. I'm feeling a lot of things. And that's where the direct and honest and transparent conversation can come in. You can be honest about the fact that you're still processing. You can be honest about the fact that it may take you time. And you can be honest about the fact that, hey, maybe we need to sit down and have a really important discussion to help me figure out how I'm really feeling about something. Because sometimes you worry about whether or not you're misconstruing, or you're jumping to all types of conclusions, or you're making it bigger than it needs to be. Sometimes you might be doing that and doubting what it is that's going on in your mind. And if you can't sit down with that other person and straighten it out, it just might get really overboard. So sitting down and talking, regardless of how much you have to really offer, is going to be important.